All right, Terry Montgomery, Treasurer's Report.
Hi, welcome. For those of you keeping track, we now are 20 minutes off schedule. So Jerry's down there going like this already to me, so I have to cut down the opening jokes. I want to, yeah, thanks, Dave. And then he puts the timer up for me. Okay, now I'm set. First, I want to thank everybody here. First of all, thank you, Bishop Trimble, for having me today. I would like to thank the Council on Finance and Administration, Dave Swinton. I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees, Doug's back there, the Board of Pensions. I have not seen Bev today, but I imagine she's here somewhere, and the entire Iowa Conference. I want to thank you for electing me your treasurer today. As I work for you, I represent you, I am here to do your work, I am your employee. I also need to do a couple other thank yous. I promised my team I would give them a signal to say thank you. So there it is, team, okay? So Maggie, Roland, Jeremy, Christina, Alex, and of course Cynthia, and Jill over there. And I also want to thank the rest of the conference staff for making me feel welcome and helping me get started into this position. So I have the clicker in my hand now. Let's get my whoops, where's my presentation, guys? Okay, we need to switch over to the one that says Treasurer's Report. There we go. All right, so on the website, there's several items for you. I have the annual statistics report. That's the compilation of the statistics that we have rolled up. I have put an executive summary on that as well as a complete listings of this year's statistics from the Ezra system. We have the audited financial statistics. I really want to thank our controller, Maggie. We have audited statistics before conference this year. Those have been placed on the website. And also the entire working budget is both in your pre-conference manual and on the website. But the thing that we're going to talk about mostly in the 17 minutes and 51 seconds that I have remaining is the budget. At last year's conference session, one thing was crystal clear. The budgets needed to be lavishly communicated. Honestly, we're going to vote on a $16 million apportionment budget today that you need to understand, or not today, this weekend, you need to understand what's in it. And so we are going to make sure the budgets are as lavishly communicated as possible. Over the spring, since I've been treasurer, I started at the end of January, we've had 12 pre-conference meetings, plus there's an online presentation that is much more lavish in the presentation of the budget. Most of those presentations lasted about 90 minutes. We had a long conversation. I'm really happy to say over 400 of you came to those presentations, and I think that truly was the lavish part of the presentation in trying to understand the budgets going forward. Today, we have 15 minutes, and so it won't be quite as lavish, but I want you to understand the budget. As we move forward, as we use the priorities, as we have our strategic directions, understanding the budget is going to let us define the direction of the budget in the future. So let's get the business piece of this out of the way. The Council on Finance and Administration is going to ask for a conference budget of $16,014,097 in apportionments in 2015. That apportionment ask is $259,000 less than last year's apportionment budget, or 1.59%. I'm also going to tell you today that this is probably the largest apportionment budget I will ask for over the next 4 or 5 years. Apportionments on our long-term basis need to move downward over the next several years as we talk about rebalancing our apportionments. And we'll talk more about rebalancing at the end. But to rebalance, we need to understand what I'm going to go through for the next couple minutes. Okay, so right here is the conference budget that you guys have in your manual each and every year. I interviewed as treasurer of the conference in January, and I had one simple question, because when you interview, you're always supposed to make up interview questions. Well, my interview question I thought was really simple, and I asked, who exactly do I report to? Yeah, that's what happened. Everybody laughed in the room. I had a whole room of about 20 people laughing at me, and I'm thinking, this is a great interview. This is going well. And because the answer is, I ultimately report to you, the annual conference. You just elected me. But I have several bosses. I have the Council on Finance Administration. I have the Board of Trustees. I have the Board of Pension. I serve as treasurer of essentially the entire, of all the boards in the conference. And so I have a lot of people. So I came into work on the first day on January 27th. I had to have budgets done in 3 weeks. Fortunately, I'm mostly budgeting is heavy in my background. And I walked up to a member of my staff that was working on it, and I go up to Jeremy and I go, Jeremy, I got one simple question. Where exactly do I get paid out of? And you know what the question is? There's multiple lines. So I'm not sure how every year we present this budget to you and you truly understand it. I'm paid for out of finance and administration and somewhat out of Board of Pensions, and so that's somewhat confusing. So the only thing that I want you to understand on this budget here today, and then we're going to try to simplify the budget so you can leave here and understand the budget, is there's 3 lines that have been added to this budget this year. One of them is a third of the way down the page. It says contingency to pay general church apportionments at 100%. Half of the way down the page, there's an allowance for uncollectible conference ministries. And almost all the way down the page, there's an allowance for uncollectible conference ministries. This is new to the budget this year. In the past, we had this really clear system in the conference that if you over there, you had a board, I see Barry, so I'm going to point at him. Okay, Barry, I've given you a budget. Your budget that we just voted on is $100,000, okay? So you have $100,000 to do great missional work, but only spend about $80,000 of that. We're going to put a spending limit on that. And then as we get to the end of the year, we'll see how apportionments are coming in and really only spend about $75,000 of it. So congratulations. You got $100,000 in apportionments, but do about $75,000 of missional work. That's not very easy to understand, is it? No. So what we've done is, in the past, all apportionments don't get paid. That's a fact of life. We've put the projection for the apportionments not getting paid on those 3 single lines. Now, Barry, I know you're retiring out of your current position, so I'll find somebody else to point at. We fixed it now that you're done, so we got that covered. If you have a budget to do $100,000 of missional work, please go do $100,000 of missional work. That's what we expect. When you vote on the $100,000, we want that $100,000 of missional work done. If you're running an expense department like mine, $100,000 is the best guess. What you need to do, try to manage under that number. Please, do everything you can. I'll talk more about that in a second. But if you have $100,000 of missional work, do $100,000 of missional work. That's why we've put on those 3 lines. We want to make the budget more clear and easier to understand. So that gets us to the next budget. So turn the page to page 3, and this is the budget we're going to go through. And I clicked 2 slides, but we're going to keep going. The first category we're going to talk about, and all these slides are going to be the same. Hopefully you've seen them on the website, and if you've heard my presentation before, I apologize. I just think it's important everybody understands this budget as we move forward. The general church will be 18% of the apportionment expenses this year, or $2.4 million. These are our apportionments to the general church. It's broken down into several categories. The Episcopal Fund is $367,000. General Church Administration is $170,000. Ministerial Education Fund is $240,000. And then the general church missions that we will give to our expenses are $2.4 million next year. What does that pay for? If you see the upper right-hand corner, we have 1 staff member that's paid for out of this one. Our resident bishop, Bishop Trimble, is paid for by the Episcopal Fund, it goes into a fund that pays for all bishops, active and retired. And so as retired bishops, Bishop Trimble is not $367,000. It goes into the pool of all of the bishops, active and retired, that the Episcopal Fund pays for. Next area is the bishop's office, is $289,000 of this year's apportionments, or 2.2%. There's an area that we've reduced our staff. We've gone from 4 full-time people to next year we will have 2 full-time and 1 part-time associates. And you can see that the full-time people will be the assistant to the Bishop of Administration, who's Bill Poland over here, a full-time executive assistant to the bishop, and a part-time administrative assistant. The finance office, I finally figured out where I got paid from, is $298,000 per year, or 3.7% of the total apportionments. The finance group for the conference is 4 people, myself, our controller, the senior staff accountant, and an AP. We are responsible for all of the finances for both the Iowa Conference, the Board of Pensions, and we manage several other entities for the sake of the conference. We manage about We manage about $35 million in annual expenses, and we also look over about $60 million in assets. That $498,000 not only covers the staff, but it also covers the annual audit, which costs about $45,000 per year, the financial software, and legal fees associated with the department and the conference and the Board of Pension. The benefits and HR department is $321,000, or 2.4% of your apportionments. This is an area that we had cut. We'd gone from 3 staff members to 2 staff members. The benefits department services over 1,500 people. It services a large portion of you in this building. We found that when we cut to 2 people and servicing 1,500 people, benefits, your retirement is very important to you. Your benefits are very important to you. We can't serve at the level that's expected. We're going to add a person back there. We tried to cut. We can't give you the service level we need. We're going to have to add a person back to give you the service level that you need for this. Our information technology department is 1.9% of our apportionment budget. It's 2 people. They do amazing things. They don't only build the lights in here, which I found to be a just phenomenal effort on Alex and Roland's part. They handle the equipment for the entire state. They work with the districts. Also within this budget, there's a $60,000 annual budget that we refurbish equipment. Every laptop, every piece of equipment has a 4-year lifespan in our conference, and it's replaced on a regular 4-year cycle. The communications department, as you see Art run around with his camera, is another area where we've had reductions. We've gone from 3 full-time associates down to 1 full-time person and 2 insanely hardworking part-time folks that are over there at the desk right now. They do a lot of stuff. They handle the communication for this event. Our website is constantly being updated. There's email blasts. There's the reporter publication. They do phenomenal work for $360,000. Our archives department is $23,000, which is a part-time person in Mount Pleasant. And the conference center. The conference center costs us $688,000 per year. This is where I always pause in the presentation. The conference center the physical conference center was built or opened in 2005, and just like any other major purchase, was a decision of a previous body of this conference. This is one of those things that whenever you make large decisions in this body, remember you might be paying for it for many, many more years. Currently, the conference center has a mortgage of $244,000 per year. The maintenance on the center is $210,000 per year. And this is one of my favorites, and I'm looking at Doug Harding, and he'll laugh at me too. We have $90,000 of mail and copy equipment that we have a long-term lease on through the middle of 2016 that we don't do mass mailings anymore, so we have $90,000 of mail equipment that's unused in the center that we'll be paying on for another 1.5 years. As conference treasurer, I have a maximum that I'm not going to sign leases over 3 years. Sometimes you have to do up to 3 years. We need to do 1-year leases. We need to stay flexible as we continue to move forward and balance ourselves. We have to be careful of $90,000 leases that last for multiple years. Another thing you're going to see that I'm adding a person here. When the conference center was built, the decision was made that we would outsource cleaning, we would outsource mowing, we would outsource janitorial. I think about my house and I think about the really long grass that I have right now. My wife would love it if we outsourced cleaning and mowing and snow removal. But why don't we do that? Anybody? It costs too much. We're going to add a maintenance person to the conference center next year. Conference, there's a lot of things that can be done. 45% of the snow removal expenses in the conference center are not from blading the parking lot, but they're when the person gets out of the truck to shovel the lot. There's a lot of small expenses we can remove, and we can reduce those expenses, but we're going to add a maintenance person to reduce those expenses. So that's a place we need to add to subtract money. And I would almost guarantee you right now here today that when we come and we get back together next year, first of all, I'm going to report on the savings that we have from the expenses in this center. The second part is I'm probably going to ask you for a second maintenance person, because I think with 2 maintenance people we can bring that down. Because as First Lady Trimble's looking at me, she knows there's a lot of little things we can get done if we would just have a person to do it, because there's days where myself or Roland or Jeremy are changing light bulbs. So that's going to be a big deal for us. We're going to find ways to cut expenses there, and you're finding somewhat how I like to cut expenses. Annual conference session here costs us about $403,000 per year. You'll see in your budget sheet it goes up next year. Remember, we're going from 3 days to 4 days together next year, so that costs a little bit more money. Clergy and support services is $970,000, or about 7.3% of your apportionments. Those come in 3 major areas. First of all, as we move clergy from place to place, the conference moves them. That's about $350,000 per year. Equitable compensation, the Equitable Compensation Committee has a couple very, very important roles. First of all, they set the minimum compensation level for all of the clergy. Then they make sure that the clergy gets paid that minimum compensation level. If they can't for some reason, they're granted up to that level to get paid. Very important committee. Pastoral Care and Counseling, Dr. Mary Frazier, her department, she services people out of Urbandale. She travels, visits via web, phone. That's about $160,000 per year. There's other cabinet services that are about $100,000 per year, and the Board of Ordained Ministries credentialing and training program is $72,000 per year. The district offices are 22% of our apportionments, or about $2.9 million. This includes the district superintendents, the field outreach ministers, the district's administrative assistants, and $320,000 for the physical space of our district offices. Then as we look at the mission side, excuse me, our CCMC administration, which consists of the assistant of the bishop, CCMC, which is Karen, and administrative assistants, they're in charge of the care and feeding of a lot of boards and commissions. As a lot of people stood up, and we have a lot of hardworking volunteers, they work very hard in the care and feeding of that, and that's 2.8% of our total apportionment budget. Our camps program is 7.8% of our apportionments per year, or just over $1 million. We have 3 camps, Wesley Woods, Camp Okoboji, and Pictured Rock, and that includes 12 full-time people, 9 year-round part-time people, and many, many, and especially with camps going on right now, many, many part-time seasonal associates. Our higher education is $752,000. That goes to $650,000 in our 4 Wesley foundations and $99,000 in the chaplaincy programs in 4 historically Methodist colleges. Parish development is $528,000, which is 1 person who will be a new person soon. Our LDM of revitalization of HCI. Community and institutional grant programs is $222,000 per year, and that really goes to ministries for women, children, poor, and the marginalized in society. Emerging ministries is $268,000. Hispanic ministries is $103,000 per year. Social justice and immigration goes to a couple programs, including Iowa Justice for Our Neighbors and our missionary, Bryn Howard, which is $160,000 per year. Iowa-Nigeria Partnership is $19,000. Jerry, I'd be a minute and 2 quicker if the clicker would work with me. Youth Ministries, $39,000. The Board of Laity is $14,000. District submissions split between the 8 districts is $92,000. Other, because I got tired of breaking them down, $26,000. And finally, our cash reserve. Our cash reserve is something Todd talked about very heavily last year. It's $500,000 within our budget. There's a couple simple ways and quick ways to describe the cash reserve. 20% of our apportionments come in December. 20% of our expenses do not occur in December. We have to have money in the bank just to pay checks over the course of the year. There's other opportunities that come up. If we're $20,000 off in apportionments, I don't want to be making those phone calls to adjust all the budgets. If people have missional programs, they need to spend their budget for the year. This gives us a little bit of flexibility. And last, if something happens to a part of the state, we say if an asteroid strikes southeast Iowa, or there's more tornadoes, floods, or whatever, the first concern of the conference cannot be apportionments. We have to turn around, continue to function with our positive programs, and also be able to turn around and help where it's needed. That's why we have to have cash reserves, is to help and make sure that we have continuity through the program. So, in closing, we need to be good stewards of our finances. If you have a $100,000 mission budget, spend $100,000 to do good missional work. If you have a $100,000 operating budget, which I control some of those, find ways to reduce it, just like we're trying to do. And this is not this is not government. If we get to $80,000 at the end of the year on a $100,000 budget, we're going to celebrate. We're not going to run out and buy $20,000 of gum because we have the budget. I love gum, but we're not going to spend it. Secondly, we need to become more transparent. I have had a couple of the retired staff members, Bob Burkhart spent some time with me, and he even says, I don't understand the conference reporting. You know, we're going to continue to make that easier to read. We're moving to an expense-based function, so you're going to look at your expenses. You have $100,000 in expenses to spend $100,000 in expenses. We're going to create monthly budgets. That's not something we have. We have an annual budget. We're going to do a lot. You're going to see a big transformation in reporting this year, and you're going to see it on the website, because you know what? Every one of you, I work for you. So do the boards and commissions. You need to be able to see if a board is supposed to do $100,000 of missional work, are they doing $100,000 of missional work? If they have $100,000 of expenses they're responsible for, are they working to stay under it? You need to be able to see that. We need to act with integrity as a conference. We have a conflict of interest statement that this conference has. Actually, it's a requirement to be a nonprofit organization. You will see it on the website. Every board member, every employee will see it, because you need to sign it, we need to sign it yearly, and we need to live our conflict of interest policy. We need to set our priorities and balance our future finances. Remember how I told you apportionments are going to be less? There's $13.3 million in expenses here. Those need to go down for the next 5 years. They probably need to go under $12 million. Actually, I have a number. I'm not going to say what it is. They're coming down. They're coming down. We need to find where our balance is and balance these finances towards the new number. And lastly, we're going to communicate about that. I hope those of you that came to my longer pre-conference meetings, as I'm only 3 minutes over now, we had a lot of time to have conversations. We talked. We asked a lot of questions. I'm going to go back out. I'm bringing conference staff with me. We're going to visit at least 12 more sites this fall with a 5-year budget. We're going to talk about this balance. I want you to know more about the budget so you have a conversation, you have a voice, and we have a great conversation. Because I work for you, this is your budget, we need to rebalance your budget as we move forward to meet those strategic priorities. And so that's how we're going to communicate with each other, is talk about these and be out in the field and talk and talk and talk. There's obviously, we're not going to do questions here, but I am here for the next 3 days. I'll be back in the treasure area. Please ask me questions. Ask me a lot of questions. I want you to understand this, and Thank you to everybody. Thank you very much.